So without much ado, so welcome Sundar Avare for today's presentation. We're all eagerly looking forward to another of your mesmerizing talks. Thank you. Hari Om. Hari Srinivas.
Namaskara, Sujit, and welcome to all the viewers of Madhwa Gnana Vruksha lecture series. As Sujit has rightly outlined and briefed us, we started a very interesting journey on Madhvanavami, where we learnt quite a few aspects about Sri Madhwacharya's philosophy, a little bit about his lineage, and we then went into one area of Madhva philosophy, which is very, very unique, which is representation of the whole philosophy in the form of Haridasa Sahitya, and which is something which is absolutely unique from the perspective of the fact that this philosophy got the Madhva philosophy written by some great saints and scholars got represented, right? The key word is representation by many people, of which, in fact, the first person to actually have written a Devarnama is Sri Narahari Tirtharu from the direct lineage of Sri Madhwacharya. So if you just look at it, there what we understand from all this is that from the beginning, the Madhva philosophy and the great teachers that we had have always ensured that the lessons of the philosophy are not constrained or not restricted to just the scholars and people who have a thorough understanding of Sanskrit and Shastras themselves, but the common man. So what does it tell us is that philosophy is not for people who who are who are scholastic and who have a certain lifestyle and so on, but it is something which is important for everyone. So long story short, whether you are an engineer, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a mother, you're a father, you're a child, whatever be your role that you play in the society and whatever profession that you choose to pursue, a spiritual bent of mind should be guiding your life. And today we are here to hear about one such great person in the lineage of Sri Madhwacharya, Sri Vijaya Dasaru, who whose story probably will give us a lot of lessons about how one can actually reach out and acquire knowledge at any stage in his life, and at the same time overcome the several obstacles and hurdles on the way to a spiritual path. When we hear his story, and I hope I do some justice to his story today, how one can face such difficult scenarios and yet emerge victorious, not only for himself but for the benefit of the entire society. Vijay Dasaru, passed away 4 centuries back, but here we are talking about him, talking about his great contribution to our lives. There's hardly anybody in this world who's not aware of who Vijay Dasaru is, but unfortunately, many people don't know the story. So let me start with this shloka, which is of Sri Vijaya Dasaru. Again, a shloka which I think all of us should write it down and we should be able to recite it every day. Agnana Tibarachedam, Buddhi Sampat Pradayakam, Vignana Vimalam Shantam, Vijayakya Gurum Bhaje. We are praying to Sri Vijaya Dasaru with this shloka which says, Agnana Tibarachedam, whatever is my lack of knowledge, please kill it. Buddhi Sampat Pradayakam, give me that knowledge, give me that awareness. And Buddhi Sampat, that itself is the knowledge, ability to think itself is the greatest wealth that we have. And Vignana Vimalam Shantam, Vignana means the spiritual knowledge or the scriptural knowledge. Vimalam Shantam, Vignanam Vimalam Shantam. The Vimalam means something which is pure scriptural knowledge. Shantam, that means someone who has got who is at peace with himself. A very important attribute for a spiritual seeker is that he should be at peace with himself. So Vignana Vimalam Shantam Vijayakya Gurum Bhaje. To such a guru whose name is Vijaya Dasa, I fall at his feet, or Gurum Bhaje. He is a guru whom I pray to. That is the shloka which is there. And there you can see in this whole presentation, I've tried to include certain pictures of that place where he was born and so forth, before we get into the to the biography. I'd just like to share one anecdote, which took me even by surprise. When I was actually preparing for this session a few weeks back, the person who actually praised to Sri Vijaya Dasaru in Chikalparavi actually reached out to me, and he sent me some pictures of that place, of the puja done on that particular day. I was so thrilled that just when I was sitting for this preparation, I got many of these pictures that you're seeing today in today's presentation live just at that point in time. So again, I think the whole effort to get his story out there for everyone to understand is something which has got Sri Vijaya Dasa's blessings itself. So with that, let me dwell into his biography and just open with a bit of an introduction that we have seen in the earlier sessions as well. If you look at our scriptures, and why this is important is we see the reflection of all these things in Sri Vijaya Dasa's works. So today's session is about his life and his works. But when you actually look at how the Shastras are actually laid down, we see that the Vedas are the foundational stone on which the entire edifice of our scriptures it rests on. That means whatever we are talking about in our scriptures it originates from Vedic thoughts. But Vedas are infinite in number, and they are also cryptic. So keeping that in mind, what there was a need for a framework to understand these Vedas. So that framework is nothing but the Brahma Sutras composed by Sri Vedavyasa himself. Then on to express that in a clearer form, in a form that everybody can understand, we have the Puranas, again composed by Sri Vedavyasa, and the Sarvamula Granthas, the Granthas composed by Sri Madhwacharya himself, to correct our understanding of the Vedas, the Brahma Sutras, and the Puranas. So Sarvamula Granthas, totaling up to 37 Granthas, are Granthas which are actually composed by Sri Madhwacharya himself. And then, there are the fantastic Tika Granthas of Sri Jaitirtha. Again, a stalwart coming in the lineage. Of course, we saw his story in detail in one of the sessions earlier. And then there are the Tippani Granthas, which are the commentaries on Sri Sarvamula Granthas and the Tika Granthas themselves. So if we just look at it, why this is important is to first of all give the structure to how our scriptures are organized, and see how what talks to which grantha talks to which grantha, and how is this whole body of knowledge created. Now, the best part of the Haridasa Sahitya is that they pan the entire length and width of our granthas. Now, that is not an easy task because our granthas are largely in Sanskrit. Many of them are dealing with fairly abstract topics, and they are very, very voluminous. So for us to be able to master all these granthas that you see on the left side can be a daunting task even for one full lifetime. But our great gurus have ensured that this is represented in the form of Haridasa Sahitya, which are much pithy, written in the local languages, predominantly Kannada, which has got fairly, it has become very popular across all the other forms, other languages as well, presented also in the musical form. Haridasa Sahitya rests a lot in the form of songs and uga bhogas and so on, which again gives you an idea about how much accessible and how committed to our memory this actually Haridasa Sahitya can be. There are very, very few people who can say they have memorized all the Shastra Granthas, but there are many people who will come and be able to recite thousands of songs from memory, read voluminous work like Sri Harikatamritasara, more of which we will see in the subsequent session about Dasa Sahitya. So the contribution of Haridasa Sahitya has been absolutely profound in the way we are looking at these granthas. So when you look at it, how Haridasa Sahitya starts is it has its origin from the Dvadasha Stotra of Sri Madhwacharya. I talked about 37 granthas that he has written. One of them is Sri Dvadasha Stotra, which in 12 chapters or adhyayas, it actually talks about different stotras on Sri Hari and all the gods, as well as bring about many philosophical topics. Again, it was supposed to have been presented in a musical form, and that probably laid the foundation stone of representing Madhva Shastra in the form of a song. And that was continued by Sri Narahari Tirtha, who was his direct disciple, and Sri Jaitirtha as well. Though Sri Jaitirtha was not his direct disciple, he came in the same lineage immediately in about 100 years after Sri Madhwacharya. But the real credit for having taken this form of presentation to a new high is none other than Sri Sripada Rajaru. He composed several kritis himself and gave it many forms. We have seen those forms so in the earlier session, so I will not repeat it here. But Sri Sripad Raja brought in several forms, not just simple songs, but Uga Bhoga, Dandakas, and so on and so forth, to ensure that a lot of these things are actually represented in multiple forms, so that people can pick up any form that they like, and yet be able to get the gist of Madhva philosophy in them. This was continued by Sri Vyasaraja, again a guru to Sri Purandara Dasa and Kanakadasa. Later on by Sri Vadarajaru, again a great inspiration for the Dasa Sahitya. They just not only promoted others and encouraged others to take it up, but they themselves composed several kritis. Sri Vijayendra Tirtha and of course Sri Raghavendra Swamiji. As we know, Hindu Yanagi Govinda is one of the most mesmerizing philosophical tenet of Madhva philosophy, which he has presented in a beautiful form in Bhairavi Ragam. So that is the lineage, and on the right side you'll see the list of the Dasa Sahitya, which grew leaps and bounds under the aegis of Sri Vyasarajaru. His disciple Sri Purandara Dasaru, as we know, is called the Sangeeta Pitamaha, and he's the one who set the syllabus as well as the methodology to teach what we know today as Carnatic music. For 400 years, this tradition has continued unabridged. There's several great musicians, several great people who have come in, but all of them have adhered to this format of teaching and learning the music. So that is the greatness of Sri Purandara Dasa, and his contemporary was Sri Kanakadasaru, story of whom we had last time. And then we have Sri Vijaya Dasaru, and then Sri Gopala Dasaru and Jagannath Dasaru. That's the order. I'm sorry, there's a mistake in the chronology. It is Sri Vijaya Dasaru, Gopala Dasaru, and Jagannath Dasaru. So for simplicity's sake, because Vijaya Dasaru's story is very long, we decided to combine the stories of Sri Kanakadasaru and Sri Gopala Dasaru in one session. And today we will learn more about Sri Vijaya Dasaru's biography. So if you look at it, the four Dasas, the people who came from the tradition, Sri Purandara Dasaru, Vijaya Dasaru, Gopala Dasaru, and Jagannath Dasaru, form the quartet of Dasa Sahitya, and they are called Dasa Chatushtaya. So four of them coming together, they are called Dasa Chatushtaya, because their contribution to this music, to the form of Haridasa Sahitya, has been immense. So second in that chronology is Sri Vijaya Dasaru. Again, please remember, Sri Vijaya Dasaru and Purandara Dasaru were not contemporaries, but Sri Vijaya Dasaru drew a lot of inspiration and motivation from Sri Purandara Dasaru kritis, which had become by those days very popular amongst the common households. So Sri Vijaya Dasaru was born in a place called Chikalaparvi. Chikalaparvi is in Manavi Taluk, which is there in Raichur district of Karnataka. So Karnataka, as you know, is in southern part of India, and Raichur district is a district to the northern part of Karnataka. There's a taluk or a smaller place called Manvi. Manvi is also the place where Sri Jagannatha Dasaru, about whom we will learn in the subsequent session. It is his birthplace, and that is where he flourished and that's the place where he wrote the famous Sri Harikatamrita Sara. So in that place, there is also a small village called Chikalaparvi. Chikalaparvi is a very small place. Even today, it is quite inaccessible. And why I emphasize this point is that such a great man was born in a place which is almost irrecognizable even today, which also says that because of that, he never got formal education. And he has led a life, in the earlier part of his life, he's led a life of immense poverty. But yet, he ensured that none of these obstacles come in his way of his spiritual pursuit, and his not just spiritual pursuit for himself, but spiritual pursuit for others. As Sri Raghavendra Swamiji mentions in his Prata Sankalpa Gadya, saying it is not just Karishe, that means it's not something, not just what I do, but I will make others do as well. That is the role that each one of us, irrespective of who we are, have to play as spiritual leaders. It is not, first of all, we should be practicing spirituality in our lives. At the same time, we should encourage, train, and impart whatever little that we know about this to others and get them motivated as well. Right? It is not enough that we do things only for ourselves. Right? It's very common thing. If somebody has got a little more money than he probably needs, we immediately say you should give it to charity. Similarly, if you have spiritual content or spiritual knowledge, shouldn't you be giving it to others? Shouldn't you help others do it? Because the impact that spiritual knowledge can make on a human being's life is unbelievable, much more than any other gift that you can give anybody else. So, coming back to the story, Sri Vijaya Dasaru was born in Chikalaparvi. His parents, Sri Srinivasappa and Kusama, were his parents. His mother's name is Kusama, father's name is Srinivasappa. Unfortunately, he lost his father at a very, very young age, and it was left to really Kusama to bring up Sri Vijaya Dasaru and two brothers. And it is now coming to light that he also had a sister who was there. It's a research which has been run quite recently, and we have come to know that he had a sister as well. So she had four children to take care of, Kusama, under very, very extreme cases of poverty. Now, why that poverty and why his father could not build any fortune is that it sort of reflects on the state of the poverty in society those days. Economic status of many, many villagers in India was extremely poor. It continues to be so even today. So you can imagine what it was 400 years back. And there was a large Ashwatha Vriksha, which is there even now, the banyan tree, which is considered to be very, very sacred. So wherever we see a banyan tree, it means that is a kshetra, that's very, very special. So next to the beautiful river, there is the Vriksha, and within that Ashwatha Vriksha, there is a beautiful idol of Sri Lakshmi Narasimha Devaru, which was established by Sri Sripad Rajaru in Chikalparvi. So Chikalparvi had already become a place of pilgrimage for many people to come. And as was the practice those days, if any Brahmin family visited a pilgrimage, they will invariably stay in somebody's house, which was there. There was no concept of a hotel and a lodge and a guest house and so on. So they will stay as guests for some other people who themselves, unfortunately, many times were very poor. But they thought it was their duty to feed the guests, sometimes having to go hungry themselves. And Sri Vijayadasaru's family was no exception. They would be the people who would actually take care of everybody who came to that place, but at the same time, they themselves did not have 2 square meals a day. So whatever little they had would also be spent giving that food to others. Today, it is so common for all of us, isn't it? If we say that, oh, somebody is coming home, already there are people start to rumble. Oh my God, I don't know why they should come. Nowadays, there's COVID also, so we come and say, oh my God, why should people come? It's a big disturbance for us. We have to take care of them. We have no patience. We don't want to give them anything. We'll have to cook something for them. Even making a cup of coffee for someone else is a huge burden for us. But those times were different. Those people were different. There was a lot of spiritual enlightenment, despite economic situation being so bad. So they never cared about themselves. They actually fed the visitors who came to Chikalparvi to perform the seva of Sri Lakshmi Narasimha Devaru in the Ashwatha Vriksha. And this poverty continued, as I said before. Srinivasappa passed away, and Kusama then was left all alone to take care of her children. Then he was named Dasappa, Vijayadasa's name initially, before getting the Ankita or the signature name. his name was Dasappa. And people, as was expected, there was a family property to some extent, and his cousins, that is Vijay Dasa's cousins, completely alienated them and they estranged him and him and his mother, because otherwise they would have had to part with some of that land and whatever little wealth was left. So they ensured that they do not get anything and they treated them very badly. He was repeatedly humiliated by several people, and to unable to bear that, they would actually call him Kusi Maga Dasa. That means Kusamma's son is Dasa. Again, in a rhyming way, they would mock at them. They faced immense humiliation and poverty during that period. Unable to bear the humiliation, Sri Vijayadasa then decided to run away from home, and then he went to Kashi. So again, this is how God directs us to the right places. We think everything is happening around us because of a certain coincidence, but God's designs are always strange and something that we don't know at all. So that is why we have to accept whatever comes our way, knowing that there is someone up there who has a larger design and who will always do things which are good in our interest. So he ran away, but he went to Kashi. And what is so special about Kashi? Kashi, of course, as we know, is a great spiritual center. And in that spiritual center, people also went there to acquire a lot of knowledge. That means there were very, very famous universities. In those days, 400 years back, Kashi was very famous and continues to be even today about the home for some of the greatest scholars, some of the greatest schools of Sanskrit and Vedic literature today, even today, continue to be in Kashi. So he went there. So imagine how destiny can act on you. First, he was born in a poor family that got poorer in a remote village, not having access to any form of education, forget spiritual education, and then as God willed, he went to the place which was known for giving the best spiritual knowledge. All of you, many of you who are joining us are joining from the New England area. So imagine somebody who were to go from a village where he's practically illiterate to Boston and study in one of the top colleges, Ivy League schools in Boston. That is for the Laukika knowledge. But imagine that happens in the spiritual world. What a big elevation that was for Sri Vijaya Dasaru. And then, of course, he never looked back after that. So again, a great thing to happen to you. So from here, he then moved to Chagi, and then he went to Kashi. So Chagi is a small village outside of Chikalparvi. But when he went to Chagi, he was welcomed by the Brahmin family there, and they gave him a lot of support for some time, and then he left to Kashi. Now, why this is important is while his greatness was never seen by people around him, there were other people who were kind to him, and that made a big impact on their own lives, of course, and on the life of Sri Vijaya Dasaru. From there, he went to Kashi. He studied for many years, and as was a custom, he wanted to visit Rameshwara. So it was a very common thing that people who studied in Kashi would then travel down south, come down to Rameshwara, and then go back. So on one such pilgrimage, he actually came down south and he actually came to his own village. And his mother and his brothers saw him, recognized him, and brought him home and made him comfortable. And then they said that, look, you've gone to Kashi once, you've studied whatever you had to, now you need to settle down. And they got him married to a woman by name Aralamma. So he was married to Aralamma, and he was to ensure that he's able to sustain himself. One of his well-wishers got him the job of a village accountant, Shana Bhoga, as they used to call him, the village accountant. But again, there was unfortunately more humiliation in store for him, even in that position. So while he was taking care of the accounts of the village, somebody forged some, some land records and blamed it on Sri Vijaya Dasaru. And again, he was blamed and humiliated. Unable to take that there, he went again to Kashi. Now, one can think, why was he going to Kashi every time? Even in that, there is a lesson for all of us. whenever we have challenges about our mind, our brain, and we are unable to control our anxiety, the best way to do that is to pray to Lord Shiva. And Kashi is a home for Lord Shiva, as we know, Kashi Vishwanatha, as well as Bindu Madhava, the form of Sri Hari who resides in Kashi. So it's a very unique place of having two gods, two famous gods in the same place, and both of them have historical relevance. It's a bit like Kanchipuram in the south of India, where there is Ekambreshwarar, who is again the incarnation of Lord Shiva, and in the same place you have Kanchi Varadaraja as well. So Kashi, he went to Kashi. So again, the lesson is we have to play to Lord Shiva. And one of the famous kritis of Sri Vijaya Dasaru is Kailasavasa Gauri Shaisha. Taila Dharayante Kodo Manaso Hariyalli. He prays to Lord Shiva and says, Kailasavasa Gaurisha Isha, all our names of Lord Shiva. Taila Dharayante Kodo Manaso Hariyalli Shambho. He says, Oh Shambho, oh Lord Shiva, give me a mind which flows and which is as pure as the way you pour oil from one vessel to the other. So when you pour oil from one vessel to the other, it just flows without making any sound. It is very, very smooth. Like that, please give me a mind which is as pure and as crystalline as the oil itself. So again, he prayed to Lord Shiva there for many years, and then again, one day he was asleep, and he was praying to God. In that situation, he fell asleep, and in his dream, he actually got Purandaradasa, Lord Krishna himself coming in the form of Shri Purandaradasa, and taking him all the way up to Badri in the dream. He went there, he visited Badri, and there he saw Sri Vedavyasa himself and fell at the feet of Sri Vedavyasa, and Vedavyasa wrote on his tongue, which is Sri Vijaya Vitthala, that giving him the Ankita called Vijaya Vitthala. Vijaya, as you know, is the name of Lord Vishnu, and he said Vijaya Vitthala. So from now on, you will compose kritis as Vijaya Vitthala with the signature Vijaya Vitthala, and your name will not be Dasappa, you will be called Sri Vijaya Dasaru. So morning he woke up a different person. In today's world, we may have a tendency to not believe such things, but it is the writing on the wall that all the spiritual knowledge that he got it instantly. He got it in a few moments. Again, because of the great work and the karma that he had performed in the earlier births. So he became very famous as Sri Vijaya Vitthala, and he was welcomed by the king of Kashi, and he instantly became famous across the country. People would run to him to pray to him and to seek his blessings, because everybody knew now that Sri Vijaya Dasaru was no ordinary man. He was a spiritually enlightened soul who came into this world, did have, he had taken up a very, very special task. The task that he took up was, as some of us might be aware, Sri Purandaradasa had vowed to compose 500,000 songs, that is 5 lakh songs. But he said, I'm going to do only 4,75,000, that is 475,000 songs, and leave 25,000 of those to be written by my disciple. Now, this is again something that is very, very common in in the lineage. Sri Jaitirtha wrote a book which is incomplete deliberately and said that one of my successors will be completing it, and it was done by Sri Raghottama Tirtharu. Again, Vyasaraja wrote Chandrika, and then he said this is going to be completed by someone who came in my lineage, and it was done by the famous Shesha Chandrikacharya. That's why he's called Shesha Chandrikacharya. I mean, he completed the Chandrika, and so on and so forth. So like that, Sri Vijayadasaru completed the 500,000 songs. He also had vowed that he will compose a minimum of 10 songs every day. He wouldn't eat if he has not composed 10 songs. Again, a great feat in those days. So, just for the record, Vijay Dasaru has composed more than 25,000 songs, not just these 25,000. 25,000 were done only to complete 500,000 songs of Sri Purandaradasa. But apart from that, he has composed several songs, Uga Bhogas. He is very famous for his Suladis, and again another form of Dasa Sahitya called Suladi. So he's called Suladi Vijay Dasaru for that reason, that the maximum number of Suladis were actually composed by Sri Vijay Dasaru. And these songs became household songs everywhere. And wherever he would go, people would learn these songs and sing along with him, creating a kind of a revolution in the Bhakti Pantha again, which was started by Sri Madhwacharya. So today, if you see, when you look at Sri Vijay Dasaru's works, it is profound. Each one of those songs, each of one of the suladis, pick up the philosophical aspect from the depths of Mahabharata, from the depths of Brahma Sutras. So those of you who are familiar with Brahma Sutras, when you read the Vijay Dasaru Kritis, you find a very clear reflection of that all the way in his Kritis. So something which is very, very unique. So if you go to all the Suladis, he has composed Suladis on Hayagriva Devaru, on Dhanvantri, on Narasimha, and Chakrabja Mandala. Again, the form of the pictorial form of for spiritual enlightenment. It's a very complex concept, but he has written Kankana the Suladi. He has expanded the meaning of Sri Chakrabja Mandala and explained it in a manner that everybody can understand, even by reading it once. So all his kritis reflect the depth of philosophical knowledge that he had. So, to your question, did Vijay Dasaru have any guru during his early years? He never had a guru at any point in time, which is again something which is absolutely surprising, and it is something that which gives all of us a lot of faith as well, saying that if God wants to give you knowledge, He will find a way of giving it, and if His will is there, we can get knowledge in a very, very small, in a very short period of time. Now, everybody may not become Sri Vijay Dasaru, but suffice it to say that it is if we have the right intention, God will definitely give us that form of knowledge. So with that, he went from Kashi, he came south, and he returned to his of the kingdom of Advani. So there was a kingdom called Advani, of course, exists even today. But those days it was a large kingdom of Advani, and the king of Advani welcomed him into his kingdom. And then that is when but again, he was not a person who was happy with just a kind of a royal patronage being on him. He was wanting to spread the message of Madhva philosophy in everybody's door to door for everybody to learn. So he took up that thing, he took up that activity, and he would go door to door singing these songs and ensuring that people get that knowledge. And there are, of course, we will see a few more stories about him. But clearly, he wanted to live on the alms that were actually given by someone else. So the king of Advani ensured that he donates a large part of that money to Sri Vijay Dasa, and that is what he founded the Vijaya Dasa Matha. So it is oftentimes we know that most of the mathas are founded by sannyasis, but for the first time a matha was founded by somebody who was a grihastha, or a person who had a household, and he would run that place like a matha. So every day he would host hundreds of people, hungry people, and feed them with the naivedya that he had done to Lord Sri Hari. Every single day he would do that. So imagine what a big transformation in his life. One moment he was poor, he was humiliated, he was illiterate, and the next moment he is rich, he is enlightened, and he is using all this in the service of mankind. A lot of things changed, but what did not change was his absolute passion for propagating the Madhva philosophy, his faith in God, and his absolute commitment to transform people. Now, who can transform others? People who have transformed at least themselves. If we have not changed ourselves, do we have any right or any authenticity or any credibility in our own minds to be able to convert someone else, we cannot even imagine. But that is something that he did extremely well. So with that, he he moved to Advani, as I said, and I will like to wrap up his biography with four stories that of people that he transformed in his life. The first one was Sri Gopala Dasaru. As we know, Sri Gopala Dasaru was known as Bhaganna Dasaru. So Bhaganna Dasaru, what again person we have heard a story in the last session, so I will not repeat it. But what he had recited the Gayatri mantra 1 crore times, right? And what he did because of that, that he got that enlightenment, and also at the same time he got the ability to actually predict the future of people. So he had become an astrologer, where he could foretell everything about a person. Now he was doing that, and people would give him some alms, and that is how he had made it like a profession. So one day, Sri Vijaya Dasaru also came and stood in that queue, wanting to talk to him. His objective was different. Not He did not want him to actually look at and seek to know about his future, but he had actually come to tell Sri Gopala Dasaru his future. So when his turn came, Sri Vijaya Dasaru's turn came, he went to Gopala Dasaru and he asked him, you are predicting the future of everybody in this world, but are you yourself, do you yourself know what your future is going to be? To he Bhagana Dasa was immediately taken aback, and he said, yes, what this gentleman is asking me is such an important question, that I am trying to predict life futures of others, but I don't know my own future. But there was this question had several layers to it. One of the things that he wanted to tell him was, your future is not about telling being an astrologer, but being able to enlighten people, get them on the right track, so that they can become great assets to the society, help people who are in trouble, rather than sit here and tell people what is going to happen in the future, which has got a very limited impact on people. So he then took Bhaganna Dasa under his tutelage and gave him the Ankita Sri Gopala Dasaru. So from that day, Gopala Vittala became his was the signature Ankita for Sri Gopala Dasaru, and his name became Sri Gopala Dasaru. Again, a telling story about the impact Sri Vijaya Dasaru had on one of the stalwarts of the Dasa Chatushtaya, Sri Gopala Dasaru. So after, if you just look at the quantity and the volume of works which are available, after, as I said, Suladis, a lot of them were composed by Sri Vijaya Dasaru, the highest, but after Sri Vijaya Dasaru, it was Gopala Dasa's turn to compose several kritis in the name of Sri, with the signature Gopala Vittala. And after Vijaya Dasaru, the maximum number of Suladis were actually composed by Gopala Dasaru. The second story was of Sri Jagannatha Dasaru. Again, we will see this story in detail, but I will say it in a short way today. So Jagannath Dasaru was earlier a very great scholar, a great Sudha Pandit, who had studied, and with his studies and with his absolute control over the Shiva Nyaya Sudha of Tika Kripadru, Sri Jaitirtharu, also came along with that some kind of arrogance. And one of the things that he did not like was Haridasas. He never thought that Haridasas to be of any relevance, in fact, of any spiritual relevance or philosophical relevance, because he believed that essentially they did not have the gnana, they did not have knowledge, and they just said something which are, very, very light and very, very almost to the point of saying whatever they said was frivolous. Now, one day, Sri Vijaya Dasaru was hosting a lunch. It was a Dwadashi, so early morning he had invited everybody to come to his house to have the food early in the morning, as we know. So he invited Sri Jagannatha Dasaru also to come to and have food in his house. Sri Jagannath Dasaru did not feel that he should be going. Anyway, as I explained, he had a bit of a he had looked at the Haridasas with some kind of a disdain. So he didn't go there. And Sri Vijaya Dasaru, when he was about to ask everybody to start the meal, he saw that Sri Jagannath Dasaru had not come. So he sent words that, can you please come and join us for lunch? To which Sri Jagannath Dasaru said, look, I seem to have I get a stomach ache if I do not eat for a long time. So I have not waited today. I've already had my meals, and you guys can please continue. So the messenger went back and told this to Vijay Dasaru, who said, okay, if he has already eaten, then let us start the lunch. And he served everybody, and everything was fine at his place. But that was not the story with Sri Jagannath Dasaru. As soon as the messenger left, Sri Jagannath Dasaru started developing a severe stomachache. And within few hours and a few days, this had got aggravated so much that it is almost feared that he will die because of this stomachache. And it took him some time to realize that he had actually insulted, humiliated somebody by not going and honoring somebody's invitation for that lunch. So he sought refuge in Sri Gopala Dasaru, who came there, and then he went to Tirupati, and he also went to Mantralaya and prayed to Lord Venkateshwara and Shiv Raghavendra Swami. And both of them directed him, saying that, look, you have insulted one of our favorite uh, disciples or our devotees. You need to go to him and apologize. And you have to only if he excuses you will this go away. So he did that, and then fell at the feet of Sri Vijay Dasaru, sought for him to be pardoned, and then Gopala Dasaru actually gifted 40 years of his life to Sri Jagannath Dasaru. And he, over a period of time, the stomach ache completely healed. Sri Jagannath Dasaru then became Sri Jagannath Dasaru with Rankita Jagannatha Vithala, and then composed many, many great kritis. Of course, needless to say, his magnum opus is none other than the famous Sri Harikatamrita Sara. Again, those 40 years that Gopal Dasaru virtually gifted him, he put it to very good use, and he himself became the fourth of the Dasa Chatushtaya. So that is the story of Sri Jagannath Dasaru. Again, a story where Vijay Dasaru inspired somebody to take up the spiritual path. The story of Mohanadasaru is equally startling. Mohanadasa was born to a very, very poor mother. The mother had lost her husband even before the child was born. So there was a lot of social stigma attached to her and the child. And unfortunately, the child was very weak and was a victim of actually of a skin disease, which made him even more abhorrible. And the child and the mother were shunned by the rest of the society. So once Sri Vijay Dasaru was performing the Sri Purandara Dasara Aradhana, and he had invited a lot of people. Hundreds of people had come there. That stayed with him would stay with that entire entourage would stay on for a few weeks. In fact, celebrating Sri Purandara Dasara Aradhana. So the lady came there with the child in her arms, and then started with the hope that if she comes to such a place where so many people are being hosted, she probably will get some food, which will at least remove the burden of looking for food, at least for a few days. She came there, but unfortunately, everybody shunned her and asked her to leave that place immediately. Unable to bear the hunger, she actually went to all the way to Chakratirtha, which is in Hampi, to commit suicide, to jump into the water along with the child. So then Dasaru saw the woman and the child, and he said, look, what you're doing is wrong. Don't kill yourself. You have no right to kill yourself. And the lady narrated all her sorrows, to which Vijay Dasaru immediately said, look, you don't seem to want the child. Why don't you give the child to me? So the mother asked, why would you want a child which is so weak, unwell, and has got a contagious skin disease? He said, no, I will take care of the child. Give the child to me. So he immediately took the child and bathed it in the holy water of Chakratirtha. And in an instant, the child completely got cured of all the skin diseases. The child grew up to be the great Mohanadasaru. Again, a great person in the Dasa hierarchy, and he has composed many kritis, including the famous Kolu Hadu, which is a song which is sung with two sticks, using the two sticks as a percussion instrument, and it is also where people perform like a folk dance around it. In the entire Dasa Sahitya, that's the only Kolu Hadu which is available today. We don't know whether other composed it, but today that is Kolu Hadu means Mohanadasaru and vice versa. And at the same time, Vijaya Dasaru, and I would really encourage all of you to listen to that song. It is available on YouTube, sung by so many people. And he has composed a kriti which he is supposed to have composed when he was bathing the child, where he starts with Chiranjeevi Agalavo Chinnanino, Parama Bhagavatara Padadhudi Dharisutali. He says that, oh dear child, may you become a Chiranjeevi, may you become immortal. How? By touching the feet of great Bhagavatas or great Haribhaktas. So you cannot touch the feet of Hari, but you can touch the feet of Haridasas. So may you become a great human being by touching the feet of other people who are praying to Lord Hari himself. So the child grew up. Vijaya Dasaru took Mohana Dasaru as his foster son, and his lineage today has grown over the years. Sri Vijaya Dasaru, as I said, was born in Chippagiri, but he then moved into, he was born in Chikalaparvi, but then he moved to another place called Chippagiri. Chippagiri is now a part of Kurnool district and fairly close to Mantralaya. So it is very common for people who visit Mantralaya to visit Chippagiri and vice versa. And all these places form the part of a common pilgrimage. Manavi of Sri Jagannatha Dasaru, Chippagiri where Sri Vijaya Dasaru is there, and Mantralaya of Sri Raghavendra Swamiji. All these places are very close to each other. So people generally who visit these places for a pilgrimage go to all these places and come back. So Mohana Dasaru's story is, again, why I talk a lot about this song is, I think it has given us a wonderful framework about how we should be leading our life. It's a long song where he gives a lot of directives to each one of us. Like, how should we lead our life? How should we live? What should we think about? How should we take credit, for example, borrow money, loans. He says, Sala Madali Beda. Don't borrow money. Whatever you have, live within those limits. Never borrow money and then not be able to repay that takes you into an infinite spiral, and you will never be able to come out of it. So like this, he has got many guide things that can be our directive principles for us. So my simple request to everybody is that please try and sing at least this one song at home every day. If you can't sing, you can read it. If you can't do even that, probably you could play it on the YouTube. But for everybody to listen. And if there is any wish that you should have for your children, it is to be Chiranjeevi Agalova Chinnaninu. That means make them immortal. So yes, Chiranjeevi should not be taken in the literal sense about being immortal. No, none of us are immortal. But you can lead a life which has got a long impact on the society. Even those people are called Chiranjeevi because they live in our hearts. Vijaya Dasaru lived and passed away 400 years back. But today, we remember him today with the same fondness, respect, and regards that people of that era did. So that is the story of Sri Mohana Dasaru. And of course, there are a lot of other anecdotes about Sri Mohan Dasaru himself, but we unfortunately have a paucity of time. And the last story is that of Sri Kalluru Subramanyacharya. Again, a very famous scholar who has studied the Srimad Nyaya Sudha, had a lot of control and a lot of very deep understanding of the subjects. But again, with that had come a lot of arrogance. And he shared that kind of a disdain towards Haridasas. So one day, he had decided to celebrate Sudha Mangala. That means the graduation ceremony for all the people who had studied Srimad Nyaya Sudha. And it was a very big event, and he was hosting it. And suddenly they realized that the main cook who was supposed to come to cook for everybody was not available. And lo and behold, who comes there? Sri Vijaya Dasaru himself comes. And the moment he saw Vijaya Dasaru, he said, "Oh my God, I don't know why these Dasas, these Haridasas who don't understand anything about Srimad Nyaya Sudha, I don't know why they come here. So they should not come. They should not be, they should not be coming here and wasting their time and our time." But then Shivadasar came. He did not ask him to leave, but he sort of did not even give him the respect of a person who had come. He looked the other way. But then somebody came and told him there's no cook. So can we request Shri Vijay Dasaru to cook? So he said, yeah, why don't you ask him? And when they asked him, Shri Vijay Dasaru promptly agreed that he will cook the main, the sweet dish which is cooked on that day. And he did that. And within no time, he came and sat down to and joined the main event, which was of the Sudha Mangala, the Sudha discourse, and the discussions and debates were going on. And at that time, um, again, Sri Subramanyacharya thought, "Oh my God! See, I asked him to go and cook. Why is he coming here and joining again?" Again, he was told, "No, this man seems to be very efficient. He's actually finished all the cooking and he has come promptly on time." So to which he said, "Okay, I don't know why he comes," and he still had reservations about his presence there. But something strange was happening. The person who was actually speaking on Srimad Nyaya Sudha suddenly started to struggle. There were some pieces that he could not translate it in the manner that it should be, and he was getting anxious. And in that anxiety, he began to stutter. Sri Vijay Dasaru was sitting right next to that person, and he immediately held his hand. And in an instant, that person got back all the memories about the topic and started reciting and started debating on this topic, giving his point of view and supporting his arguments on Nyaya Sudha. Something which went on uninterrupted. Kallur Subramanyacharya did not observe this. He thought that yes, that scholar probably might have forgotten, but he is now on his way. Then Vijayadasaru took his hand off, and again that person began to struggle. Then everybody realized that it was actually Sri Vijayadasaru. When he was touching and blessing that person, he was actually able to speak. That means he was the real reservoir of the knowledge. And the person who was talking about it, yes, of course, was a great scholar, but still it needs the presence of a great gnani or someone who is a scholar in the truest sense to be able to talk about it. So he was getting all his energy from there. Sri Subramanyacharya felt very, very bad. He fell at his feet of Sri Vijayadasa and requested him to consider him as one of his disciples, which Sri Vijayadasaru was again a very, very kind human being, immediately agreed, and he became his disciple. So, in short, again, it was a very, very profound moment. And in that moment, Sri Kalluru Subramanyacharya has composed a kriti, which is now called Sri Vijaya Dasaru Kavacha, which says Smarisi Badikiro, Divya Charana Keregiro. So again, a song composed, again, very commonly recited in everybody's house, like Sri Harivai Stuti, Sri Vishnu Sahasrama, Sri Raghavendra Stotra. If there's one song which everybody recites on a daily basis on anybody, it is Sri Vijay Dasaru's on Vijay Dasara himself, which is Marisi Padikiro Divya Charana Keregiro. It's a beautiful song on Sri Vijay Dasaru, and what all just thinking about Sri Vijay Dasaru can give. So when one reads Sri Vijay Dasaru's kritis, one of the things which stands out is his absolute in-depth knowledge about Madhwa philosophy, all its aspects with all its nuances. Something which is to be studied, to be believed. So I would urge all of you to take up the studies of Sri Vijaya Dasaru's works. There are many, many great works which have been published. Of late, there have been a lot of compilations of these songs which have been published by great scholars. One of my personal favorites is Sri Vijaya Dasa Darshana, again a kriti written by Sri Vyasankare Prabhanjanacharya. It has got reprinted a few times. It's a brilliant research work. Dr. Prabhanjanacharya already has a PhD, but I think he should be given one more PhD for the amount of research work that he has done. The book is complete with all the details about Sri Vijayadasaru's life and his great works. Many of the kritis written on him have also been beautifully compiled in this book. Like this, there are several other sources of for these kritis. I would urge all of you to make an effort. Even if you, many people say, "Oh my God, I cannot sing." To be learning Haridasa Sahitya, you don't have to be a singer. You just have to have an open mind. And of course, if it is sung in a musical way, it is good. But if you are not able to do it, even reading it in the form of a study, like a book, even then it gives you kind of lessons. And take my word for it, I'm studying the Brahma Sutras currently, and I can tell you that all the lessons of Brahma Sutras are beautifully encapsulated in the Haridasa Sahitya, and Sri Vijaya Dasaru's work especially really stand out in that context. So this is the short life story. I'll just wrap up the session with a few pictures. That's a picture of Sri Vijaya Dasara Anika Bande in Chikalparvi, where he actually sat down and performed his daily rituals. Sri Vijaya Dasara also, because he was a Dasa, Haridasa, he would always wear anklets and they would dance to the tune and sing songs along with that. It is the dancing to this kind of a song is a way of completely surrendering oneself at the feet of Lord Sri Hari. So he would do that, and that we are so fortunate today that these places and these things have been preserved even today. That is the Panchamudra that is used to for men and women to wear the Panchamudras, and then there is a beautiful Sane Kallu. That's a holy stone on which they would actually, they take a sandalwood piece of sandalwood, and then they would rub against it, and that will give the famous gandha. And there is a beautiful vessel of that was used by Sri Vijaya Dasaru that he had got apparently from Kashi. So all this are to remind us about his great life as well. These items are available in Chikalparavi even today, and so if you visit the place, please request the people there to be showing you. This is the Mukhya Prana Devaru, a beautiful idol of Hanuman, which Vijay Dasaru has established at Chimpagiri. That is the Rudra Devaru, the famous Rudra Devaru, Lord Shiva's linga that he got from Kashi, and which is now established there as well. You can see all this when you visit this place, and this is what he composed the famous Kailasa Vasa Gauri Shaisha song praying to this particular Lord Shiva. So that is all I had to share. This is about Madhwacharya for the youth, one of our initiatives that we have been running for last 16 years. The idea is to present the philosophy the present the philosophy in a novel way, in a simplified way, and in English as much as possible, so that people get an outline of the lives and works of great gurus that we have. So that's a little bit about Madhwacharya for the youth. If you would like to enroll, you please go to YouTube. You can subscribe, and you will get notification every time this uh, workshops are conducted. Every month we conduct a workshop for the benefit of the youth for an hour on Sunday afternoon India time. So if anyone is interested, please do join, or you can watch the recordings of the last 16 workshops that have been presented. They are all available on YouTube. So with that, I would like to move to the question and answer session. See if there are any questions. I see there's one question. Yeah, we can skip this, go to the next topic. Yeah. So did Vijay Dasaru have any guru during his early years? As I mentioned, no, he did not have any gurus. There is no evidence of his having been taught by anybody. But clearly, as I mentioned, when he was in Kashi, in his dream, he was taken to Vedavyasa himself and given the Ankita Pradana or blessings of Sri Vedavyasa himself directly as Sri Vijaya Vithala. So again, a miracle in front of us, how a virtually illiterate person can become one of the most knowledgeable persons. And he became an Aparoksha Gnani, not just a Gnani. He became an Aparoksha Gnani in one instant. So clear highlights for us from his life are the fact that one should not lose track of his spiritual path, irrespective of whatever comes in the way. Some things will go wrong, some things will not go wrong, but that should not deter us going ahead with actually talking about and pursuing us. I think the challenge which all of us face is a little bit of, if a small obstacle comes in the way, we have a tendency to just go off track, and we find it very difficult to regain our path. Obstacles are only opportunities. Every time we overcome an obstacle in our spiritual path, it makes us more committed, and it enriches us with an experience. So instead of feeling bad about it, the best way to do that is to continue our path. And second thing is a big hope and a great message from God, that if He wants to give you that spiritual knowledge, He can give it to you in an instant. So let us make it a point. Vijay Dasaru wrote 10 songs every day for throughout his life. We may not be able to even recite those 10 songs, but let us make it a point that every day we will spend 5 minutes just listening to one of his songs and contemplating in those 5 minutes what the meaning of those songs is and what is the lesson that he has for us. So thank you, Sujit, and everybody who's organized this. Very happy that people of NESRSB are extremely committed to learning about our philosophy and about our great gurus. These are all inspirations. These are our role models, and even a little bit of learning about them makes us a better person. So, in a very short period of time, in a year, we would have covered so many vital aspects, setting a good foundation for everybody to take up their own philosophical lessons. So, thank you, and back to you, Sujit. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so thanks a lot, Sundar Ore. I think this was amazing, as always. And I think today the takeaways were even more, profound, because I think one of the things you mentioned that Raghavendra Swami also was saying is basically it's not just what I do and what I achieve, and how do we enable others to kind of do the same things and achieve. I think luckily in our own small way, I think Madhwacharya for youth as well as the Gnanakalpavruksha is trying to achieve something similar on a smaller scale, of course. But it's amazing that some of the transformational stories that you talked about, and the people who got transformed are all one of some of the Dasa Chatushayas themselves, actually, right? Gopala Dasaru and Jagannatha Dasaru, which you told. I mean, they elaborated on those stories. So that was one big takeaway from me. I mean, so that we actually, not only learn and do things for ourselves, but also kind of help enable others, which seems to be a pivotal thing for kind of perpetuating all the spiritual knowledge throughout, right? And other key takeaways, we talked about this transformation basically for uh, how Vijay Dasaru himself, as we kind of the question that I asked, basically, right, being poor, being humiliated, utterly, kind of completely downtrodden in every sense of the word, both financially as well as spiritually downtrodden, I would say, right? And then moving from that state to becoming financially rich, being able to host other families and being able to kind of give out food to a lot of other people, as well as being enlightened without a guru, right? And that is what was perplexing me. That's why I asked the question, because normally there's a guru or a guide who comes to kind of take you through the journey from one place to another. It is almost like he was a preordained, pre-enlightened soul who was planted on this earth and who kind of discovered himself over a period of time, right? And we've heard such stories also in the past. People, and there are stories. I don't know. Maybe you can validate that. I've heard about some people saying that he's actually a continuation of Purandara avatar, actually, right? Who himself was supposed to be an avatar of Narada. I don't know how much of it is true or whether it's validated, but that is one line of thinking or line of explanation, basically. And this commitment to transform people, as we mentioned, I think that is a big takeaway, basically, in this. Basically, you talked about Jagannatha Dasaru, talked about Gopala Dasaru, and of course, we'll talk about Jagannatha Dasaru in the next edition also. And Mohandas, I had not heard this story earlier. So this was very revealing for me, basically. And then, of course, the Kolu Kolu, I think I've heard that song. I think Mysore Ramchandra basically sings this a lot, the Kolu Kolu song. And Chiranjeevi Agaloni, I think unfortunately, I've not heard that song. I'll probably immediately go, and I was checking about it while we were actually talking. So that is something that we will definitely pursue. And one more thing that you mentioned was, which is applicable to most of us. We will not be able to get access to Hari right away, right? And I think touching the feet of Haridasas and bowing down to Haridasas, especially with Vijaya Kavacha, chanting Vijaya Kavacha every day, would be another, I would say, so-called easy way, or at least a more available, accessible way to actually reach Hari himself. So I think thanks a lot again, and of course, I'll be curious to hear from you about Brahma Sutras, which you are currently focusing on at maybe at a later point in time. So again, thank you very much,
Sure.
Sundar Avare, and
Yeah. Sujit, just one, sorry for interrupting you.
yeah.
There is one question. Are there any complete Nama, Dasar Nama books for each Dasaru? Can you share the book references and where we can get them? Yes, you can definitely get them. Fortunately, they have all been edited recently and republished. Why re-editing? Because some of them had some mistakes from the original ones. They have all been corrected, and today it is available in almost all the book stalls in Bangalore. They could be available anywhere, but bookstalls which sell spiritual books. I'll be happy to share all these kind of contacts, but you can do it directly as well. Vedanta Book House, which is there in Chamarajpet, has these books. So you can call them the regularly shipped books abroad, and it's a very common thing. Every time I visited, which I do every fortnight, there will be somebody or the other, buying books from to be predominantly taken to other countries as well. So you can do that. There is a book called Saviraru Dasa Padagalu. Saviraru Dasa Padagalu. There are some books like Aidu Savira Dasa Padagalu, Hattu Savira Dasa Padagalu. I mean, they are obviously been written by and edited by Arulumallige Parthasarathi, a noted scholar. It is available there. So you can and that is classified by the Haridasas. So not only the Dasa Chatushtaya, there are other Haridasas as well. All these kritis have been published, edited in wonderful books, which are absolutely available. And to your question about the Avatara and Vijaya Dasaru continuing, so one thing we need to understand, Sujit, in our entire Madhwa philosophy, the only guru whose true form or whose swarupa we know is Madhwacharya. He is the incarnation of Vayu, as we know. Nobody else, no other person's incarnation we know from an authentic source. Only by deduction can we make an estimate that this person could be an incarnation of them. Neither they nor anybody else has said anything like that. So Vijay Dasaru, some people say, is an incarnation of Brigu and so on, Brigu Rishi. But the fact is that neither he nor anybody else said it. Some people have that belief and that faith, so which is absolutely, it is their faith, and if they believe it, there is no harm in that. But there is no doubt that Vijay Dasaru is one of the divine gurus who has got great lessons, irrespective of whose incarnation he is or he isn't. I think that becomes a slightly controversial and unnecessarily controversial subject about people's avatara. Now, why Lord, why he wanted us to know that he is incarnating as Madhwacharya is you get moksha or salvation given by Sri Hari or Goddess Lakshmi. Only these two people are authorized to give salvation, mukti. But the guru who gets you that mukti is Vayu. So it is very important for you to know that he is the guru, and Sri Hari is ultimately the bestower of salvation. So you should stick to that. But none of the other gurus have said it because it is of no relevance to anybody. The fact that Jaitirtharu or Trivikrama Panditacharyaru or Gopal Dasaru and all the great gurus that we have are there to give us a lot of profound knowledge is a treat by itself. So I would urge all of you. I think great question about the book availability. All these biographies are also available. Many of these biographies are available, and otherwise you will find a short note about their life given before the kritis have been presented. So if you would like to acquire them, it's available in many places. So I really recommend all of you to definitely get hold of these copies and keep it at home, because if you have a book, somebody sometime will definitely read it, and you definitely should read it. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Sundar Avare.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for participating.
With the subsequent sessions of where we look at the life and works of Sri Jagannath Dasaru. Really, if you talk about Sri Jagannath Dasaru life and works, there should be one thing about his life, and there should be something about his work. And the third session should actually be about Harikatamritsara, which is like a magnum opus by itself. But in the interest of time, we will keep it to one session and then see how it goes. Thank you so much and have a great day, all of you.
Yeah.
Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Hari Srinivasa.